Hello everyone and welcome to this TrueFootball free instruction video. Today we're going to talk about the detailed database use. Now I'd like to give massive credit to TrueFootball World for making an original video regarding this. You can find them on his YouTube channel, which I will link in the description, and they are this video and this video. But we're going to do an English version of these videos here, and well, I guess we'll just get started. I should note, for this I'm using DB Browser for SQLite. There are definitely other programs available. There are probably better programs available, because it's not the best I've ever used, but it does the job for showing you what we're on about here. So there are definitely some tables you won't want to edit, so I believe regional zones belonging is one of those. Zones, they don't fit, so SQLite sequence doesn't even have anything in it. Test table. But yeah, first table you may be interested in editing, and is not that one I've clicked on wrong, is countries. So, okay, basically ID, the first field on the left, that is just the ID of the country. If you're editing current countries, no need to change them. If you're adding new ones, you may want to, so you're going to want to name that the same as the number that it is on the table. So new one, for example, would be 213. Okay, code is the three-letter code for countries. That's important because it links to all of the player tables, and it's also how you name the leagues. So make sure that's correct, and if you're editing countries, also make sure that you edit it in other places. Like one mistake I made was Montenegro, which is MNE. I've called that MNT so many times when I was originally making mods or working on them. Continent ID, that's the continent. You should be able to figure it out from this list. This list for Europe is 1. So South America is 2, North America is 3, Asia is 4, Africa is 5, Oceania is 6. Begin date, that's the date when the game begins. As you can tell, I'm working off a slightly old version of the game here. But basically the game will begin on that date. Usually you should leave it as 1st of July or 1st of January, depending on what country it is. Skill, not really worth touching that. Ranking, not really worth touching that unless you're editing for TFNM, which would be a different database and a different video. Primary color and secondary color, don't change those. If you're adding a new one, I'd just recommend base it off what nations are here. Faces, now this will, so I don't know if you have seen the faces of staff that they give, like the businessman and the chairman. This is what determines those, so just put in whatever's most relevant for your country. Zone ID, not worth editing those. I believe you can link to the table in zones to figure out where any new nations you're adding would be. And continental points, that's kind of how good your nation is in relation to the continents. So what I'll do is I'll just sort by continental points for the time being. And you can see Spain is top, England is second, Italy, Germany, and Brazil and Argentina, and then France, Russia. That's also, I believe, the values that the ranking starts on at the moment. This is, I believe, scheduled to change in an upcoming update, so I wouldn't be banking on that, but that's the country table. Next up, first names, and is this mod? Oh, no. So me and the friend have been working on increasing those, but basically this is the list of names that generated players can have. So, for example, if I filter by England, we have all of these names are available. Some of them you may never seen before, some of the additions that I was making, but basically the chance is how likely they are. So, for example, an English player is twice as likely to be called David as he is to be called Lewis, and then that's an 8 times chance name like Paul is 8 times more likely than a 1 chance name like Declan and Muhammad. And similar to last thing, except there isn't a chance, it's just a random. So there's I'll go England again, because if I go Poland, I'd probably butcher the name. There's an equal chance of someone being called Smith or Jones or Taylor, or if we go all the way down here, of Chamberlain or Dixon or Harris. So yeah, this is often a good table to update, because there are plenty of names that you can add still. Leagues is the next one. This is just a list of leagues. There will be another video coming out on how you actually make them, because you have to go through a different file to do so. But if you do, like I've added the Italian 4th division here, the Serie D, you do have to add them to this table. So that's one important thing to remember. Next table worth looking at is nationality chances. So this is the chance of players being generated in each league. So it is absolutely worth checking what the percentages are and adding if you feel like you need to for each league. So for example, here's the English Premier League. So let's click down one. So there is a 34% chance any player in the English Premier League will be English. There is a 7% chance they'll be French, 6% they'll be Irish, 6% they'll be Spanish, and all the way down to 1 for like Morocco, Cameroon, Czech Republic, Poland, Austria, Israel, Jamaica. And it should be noted that you do have to add them all up to 100% for all of these. Otherwise, there's going to be problems. So yeah, don't leave blanks. Anyway, nationality chances for youth. This is similar, except it's for your youth team, and I don't believe it has to add up to 100, because, well, look, 122 for England. So you've probably seen youth players come through, and I'll go for Italy, for example, because I remember doing a youth-only save with Juventus a couple of years back. But you've probably seen... You may have seen an English player come through, but you may have seen a Croatian or a Ukrainian or a Brazilian. I could have sworn they had like Somalia in here a couple of years back. Obviously, they don't anymore. But yeah, this is the table that determines the chances for that. Moving on, players, another table worth updating. I've not done a ton of work on this one. Most of my player work I do in Access, simply because this program is quite clunky to edit in. But as you can see, what we have here is like, we have Aaron Ramsdale, Bandolino, so basically the entire Arsenal squad's here, Aston Villa and Brentford, and that's all I have in this one. But it's still good enough to show you. So team is the team they're in. If you haven't edited the team names in the teams table, which we are getting to, that would be A London, that would be AV Birmingham, that would, I believe, be B London. I've not done a ton of games. There's not been a ton of games I've played without name patches, so I'm not familiar with most of the ones that went in the Premier League when I didn't have those. Anyway, country is the country code. I think we discussed this under countries. This is where you need to link those. I believe all the ones in this file are correct, but again, don't make mistakes. I think I initially had Pepe down as IVO, which is a non-existent code. Age is the age of the player. Position is their position, so goalie, centre back. One thing to remember, particularly if you're coming from a FIFA background, is striker. The position code for that is CF, or centre forward, rather than ST or striker. Also, if you're using Transfer Market, there's no such thing as a second striker in this game. Just give them centre forward or attacking midfielder, depending on where they play most. But other than that, it should be pretty simple, and I'll just discuss second position real quick. Second position is the same codes, just as the other position that they can have, that doesn't have as bad of an impact on their ratings as, say, playing Kieran Tierney at striker. So I'll go with Tomiyasu as an example. His main position is right back. He can also play centre back. Or if you're, well, the entirety of Arsenal's defensive midfielders, their main position is DM. They can also play CM. Anyway, skill. That is the rating of the player. So I'll sort by it. At the moment, so in this file, Bukayo Saka is the best player on 85. Then we have Partey, Pierre-Emerick, Martinez, Leon Bailey. And then down the bottom we have a few youngsters like Finn Stevens, Cameron Archer. Charlie Good, who, let's be honest, he's a League One player playing with Brentford, but we'll move on from that. And then version, now I've seen 1.0 and 2.0. I believe the main thing that's changed is the transfer value. Don't know if you've seen in game how sometimes some players who are like of the same age and rating have had a much higher value than others. That version's why. There's two values you can have for this, which is 1.0 and 2.0. Pick one and stick with it. It doesn't really matter which one if they're all the same. And then finally, name is name of the player. That should be pretty obvious. Anyway, regional zones belonging, not really worth editing that one. Rivalries, now this again should be fairly obvious. So it's basically the rivalries between teams. So I'll pick this one because I'm a QPR fan. For example, there's Fulham and QPR. It's of medium importance to Fulham fans and it's of medium importance to QPR fans. So that rivalry isn't likely to turn up as a particularly high one on anyone's radar. Whereas, and I was recently managing Polonia, I got asked a question about, do you consider this a rivalry every time we played Legia? And that's because it's 3 importance for both teams, so that's the highest importance. And then I can't really think of a one rivalry, so I'll just pull out a random one. Like here's Sunderland and Leeds. They're rivals, but it's not that fierce, so both of them have low importance. Also remember to change the names if you change the names in the teams file. I haven't done that yet. SQLite sequence, not worth editing. And then the final table that is worth editing is teams. So, there's different things you'll probably need to do to create a team, because emblem, among other things. But what you're going to want to do, I've just filtered it down to England because it's easier to see than having everything scattered all over the place. But what we have here is we have Manchester City. So that's the name of the team. Should be fairly obvious. Some of them I've already edited, some of them I haven't. It's pretty simple to edit all fields actually. So, and there we go. That's a field edited. Emblem. You should be able to figure out what the emblem is. Well, you've got plenty of options. Like if you've seen emblems in game without a logo pack, you'll have seen this. There's a Tottenham one, which is, I believe, white with a blue exterior, so blue line around the outside. Arsenal is red with a white line outside. You can reuse those by just calling it the same thing. So if I just kill the England one and go red, white, 1, you can see that United, Arsenal, Benfica, Granada, Alkmaar, Braga, LRL, Guangzhou, Rome, Reims, Spartak Moscow, and plenty of other teams, they all use the red, white one. Ignore a couple of teams that have turned up with like Alania Vladikavkaz, they use a yellow, red and white logo. But you can see it, you can reuse those logos. It is worth noting, some teams have very unique logos. So Manchester City, which I believe is the sky blue surrounded by white, that's just called Manchester City because if I filter by emblem, again, only them and New York City, which is their subsidiary, only those two use that logo. And Liverpool, they also have their own. I believe for them it's them and FC Twente. And I'll do one more just for illustration. This one might be one that's only. So Paris Saint-Germain, and yeah, it's only used by PSG. Anyway, skill. Oh, hang on, I've clicked the wrong button. Sorry. Skill is the ability of the team. So, for example, I'll use one that's pretty easy to determine. Arsenal at the moment, 8.0, so they would be rated 4 stars. Chelsea, 9 is 4.5 stars. Now, 9.5, that would add a silver star to Chelsea's. So Liverpool, Manchester City, you may have seen in game. I believe these ranks aren't edited. So you have seen 9.5 is the 4 gold stars plus half gold star and half silver star. Stadium capacity, how many fans can you fit in the stadium? You can make this. I've never actually experimented to see how big you can make it, but you can make it as small as you want, like Basingstoke. They're not a very big team, so they only have 650 fans in their stadium. Whereas if you are a big team like Tottenham, you can have 90,000. Obviously, you can upgrade it. Fun thing from my recent save was having Polonia Warsaw have 130,000 fans in the European final. Anyway, League ID, that's the league they play in. Remember, League ID, we've already gone over it in leagues. It'll also be the name of the files you make. Some of these leagues, so it's also worth having one further down. So, Ing 7 here, for example, you'll see the top teams in Ing 7 are North Ferriby, Basingstoke, Whitehawk, and Gosport. They're the ones that can get promoted if these other teams get relegated from League Ing 6B or Ing 6A. Actually, sorry, Worcester is the best team in the English 7th Division. I have no clue how I missed. I'm just going to stop now. Anyway, if we move on from that failure, budget is how many $1,000,000 you have to how many millions you have to spend. I won't say dollars. I play in dollars because I'm Australian, but it changes for each of the. So it doesn't change for currencies, but what you'd call it does. So for see Liverpool, you have plenty of money to spend, 650 million, but if you're Accrington Stanley, you have 1 million. That's why that's actually a pretty decent challenge, keeping them up. Anyway, last place. That's where the teams last finished. This is not all that important. Like as you can see, all of the teams in the lower divisions have 0 set. This is only important for continental. If a team finished in continental places, or I believe 1 below, like Wolves here. So Liverpool, City, United, and Chelsea, they will be registered to start in the Champions League in this game, and then Leicester, Arsenal, I believe, and Tottenham, I believe, will go to the European Cup. This is another thing where you'll probably have to have more teams have their last place when we get the Conference League and in the upcoming update. And then finally, generate players. It's interesting. Generate players. It's basically, say I start a save in Albania. What teams players would be generated other than Albanian ones and teams already in the Champions League? So you can set teams to have those players generated. If you want a small save, it's generally recommended to keep those off. I've added a few more because I do like having some scouting available, but that probably won't make the final release of this mod. But anyway, test table is just a blank table, and zones is not something you should really edit. Although you should be able to fix. This is mainly a handy guide for when you are adding clubs. So I meant not clubs, are leagues and countries, and you need to find what zone they're in. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I know it's been a bit of a long one. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in a comment or DM me on Discord. My Discord name is why can't I show it? It is it's Derpy. You can find me on the True Football Free Discord, which you can find through True Football Fans' YouTube channel. And thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.